think we're going the right way. It's just up here on the left.
Okay, here it is.
It's one of a kind, and you don't find the other theatres around like it.
It's a totally unique venue. There's nothing to compare with it anyway.
Extraordinary, unique.
You just got to come here.
Challenging.
Beautiful and open.
Unique, challenging and exciting.
It's a lovely place.
Vastness, challenging, uniqueness.
Organic. Everything's very
Big.
natural.
Big.
Amazing backdrop.
The Minack is not just a stage, it's a place as well.
Your company pass, you need to wear it at all times. You can wear it anywhere, around your neck, around your wrist, but they won't let you in the theatre without it, okay? Your company pass.
The sea and the cliffs and the nice fresh air and everything.
It's a completely magical place.
Well, I think it's as magnificent as the pictures that we saw the first time. It's tremendous. It's tremendously well kept.
Well, it really is the most amazing space. Really moving. You just can't explain it. It's nothing like it looks like on the camera. It really isn't. We've seen films and pictures and it's just breathtaking. It's really amazing.
It's a beautiful place, and having the backdrop as the sea is something very special, and I think everybody feels very privileged to be here.
Okay, we're here, we're at the theatre, we've got our passes, we've got our camera, and we've only got a day to find out all we can about this theatre, so let's go.
Well, the Minack is a very special place. It's unique for one thing. I mean, I've had an affinity with it. I mean, I started working here years ago when I was 16 in the car park, helping Rowena, working for Rowena at that time, and I knew her well. And it's something that gets into your blood. The uniqueness is something about its position, the history that goes on, that's behind it, and it's something that's very difficult to put into words.
One of the first things you'll notice about the Minack Theatre is there's lots and lots of steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
The main piece of advice that I would give to any director working at the Minack is to allow yourself the time to enjoy it. It's probably one of the best experiences you'll ever have, one of the most memorable experiences. It's something to dream about. And if you don't take the time to enjoy it, you'll regret it, because the time goes so quickly and you may never get the chance to do it again. So my main advice would be just to enjoy it, because it's the most beautiful theatre in the world, I think.
Directing for the Minack is very challenging. The first thing I would have to say is that no director should even contemplate directing a show for the Minack Theatre without coming to this theatre and seeing it for themselves. The theatre is extraordinary. It's quite unlike any other theatre that I've ever seen or have worked in.
You're not here for much of the rehearsal time. So whatever you do in the rehearsal room has to be changed when you get into the space, because it's so unique and it has such unique elements to it. You get the shape of the scene before you come down here, but the detail you do change when you actually get into the space.
When we rehearse, we mark out the Minack stage, which means obviously we have to have a big rehearsal space. The company members have as well a map of the Minack stage, which I photocopy from the notes sent out by the theatre manager.
Open air acting requires a boldness, a size, a willingness to dispense entirely with infinitesimal subtleties.
You have to think about the fact that the audience are raked and they're all around you, so everything has to be much bigger than feels natural.
High sight lines are something that you have to think about in terms of blocking. You've got to make sure that not too much really important action takes place downstage. If it takes place downstage, basically what's going to happen is that for somebody sitting even halfway up the auditorium, the actor is going to disappear behind the head of the member of the audience in front of them.
The Minack has a very steeped rake, audience rake. Vocally, that can be extremely difficult. No member of the company should be closer than 3 feet to the audience. And what makes it so interesting is that the people who are at the back of the stage are as visible as those at the front, if not more so.
Apparently this hexagon is the optimum performance space on stage.
Performing here, everyone in the auditorium can see you.
Another difficult thing about playing the Minack is you never play dead centre, because that is just the lighting box and there's no point in playing to that. So when you're working with the actors, I find it best to get them to think about sweeping their eye focus round from the gully, which is stage right, to the main bank, which is stage left, and they sort of hop over the middle where the lighting box is.
The Minack Theatre is difficult to play because 80% of the audience are on one side of the stage, 20% are on the other side of the stage. Also, an actor's instinct is to try and get themselves playing perpendicular to what they perceive to be the row of the audience in front. However, in this theatre, because it is unbalanced in that way, if you do that, you find yourself performing to around 20% of the audience, and the remaining 80% get an excellent view of your left ear.
You can't cross from one side to the other backstage. If you need to, you try when you're blocking your play or devising your play to actually have the space to go right the way round. So you go up and round the coffee shop, which takes ages, but that's the best thing. If they absolutely have to, then I try and get them walking as neutrally as possible or in character.
The off-stage areas at the Minack can be clearly seen by the audience, so your tech crew either have to be in costume or in blacks, and we find it quite useful for them to play along and to be part of the company. The actors can be seen making quick changes, moving around backstage, so again it's the same thing. They need to hold their role for as long as they can be seen.
Essentially, you have to work on the premise that as every scene is ending, another scene is beginning. People can't enter suddenly, so you have to sort of build it into your whole staging, that they're in character and we're seeing them before they actually get on stage as someone else is going off.
I think the best shows at the Minack that I've seen overlap entrances and exits, and it's a convention that the audience pick up very quickly. The final line of one scene is spoken, and then the first line of the next scene comes in straight away. So you have to have your characters in position ready, so you will walk on the next scene as the last scene is finishing.
If you want to have an actor create an entrance, they've really got to stride on there, if not run on there.
The stage tips back. You can't really tell that on photographs, but when you get here you realise that it actually slopes towards the back of the stage. We've never had a great problem with that because we don't tend to put any props down loose on stage anyway because of the wind. So, but if you were putting a ball down, you would have to recognise that it'll just roll to the back of the stage.
It will just come as a little bit of a shock to the actors when they first get on it, and suddenly the rake is the wrong way, and you actually begin to feel it in your calf muscles. Every actor sort of comes off after the first day going, oh, me calves, what's that all about then? Oh, that's the adverse rake. Oh, right. It's not a deep stage, but it's a very wide stage, so you need to get the actors used to rushing around, particularly if you have scenes which involve actors doing a lot of running or just a lot of very, very fast action. You've got to get them used to that size, because when they come here they're going to feel like they're doing a marathon.
It's really important to have a warm-up before you actually do a performance, or in fact before you rehearse in the space at all. It's a real health hazard, the Minack. It's very precarious in terms of physically it's dangerous. You know, you're running around, there's steps, there's easy places to trip, but also you can pull muscles very easily. Vocally, it's very challenging. There's a wind, it's often damp, it's misty, and quite often it's cold, and so it's really vital to warm up voices.
It's certainly worth blocking some of the action off the main stage, because this stage is so interesting. It has so many extra little bits and pieces, that it really is worthwhile thinking of making use of them as much as you can.
The balcony is very attractive and tempting, but you actually can't be seen from the balcony by some of the audience.
You'll find in your get-in weekend particularly that the members of the public are coming in to have a look around the theatre. They're not actually allowed onto the stage space, but they will often sit at the top and just watch. I don't mind that. We put up notices to explain what the production is and to invite people to sit and watch. I think it's good for the company to get the feel of that, and it's also advertising the show.
20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25.
We have our own health and safety policy, which means that the company stage manager has the responsibility to look after the company. So my staff have the responsibility to look after the public, and the company stage manager, he has to make, if there is an evacuation for any reason, he is responsible for gathering up his cast and making sure he knows they're all there.
Ideally, any stage manager that's going to go and work down there should go down and spend some time looking at the theatre, checking it out.
Stage managers have a really hard job here.
Yeah, and we've been roped in to help. So come on, let's go.
Get-ins at the Minack are difficult because you get all of your equipment, all of your set, everything out of the van at the top of a very big hill, and then you have to take that down through the theatre itself. So you either have to go down lots and lots of little steps, or the way we usually do it is to go down the actual seating, which is banked, so it acts like steps. Things like big costumes gets very difficult to get down there. It's not really get-in friendly at the Minack. The best place to park the van is right up at the top car park, immediately at the top of the theatre.
Make a human chain down the cliff. It works very well. Instead of having a couple of gophers going up and down getting a kit, get a human chain and they can carry it all down and pass it on and on and on down the cliff. It's very, very easy and effective.
There are two places that are kind of sheltered, indoor kind of stores. Above the dressing rooms, there's a small props cupboard, and there's also a little shed there now as well, which are good places for storing small things. Large items of set, very often when we go down, we've got things that aren't going to fit in there. And the best thing you can do is to take some waterproof kind of covering. We take some big tarpaulins and some big sheets of plastic so we can cover things up outside, weight them down with some rocks or some bricks or whatever, and keep them in the area just at the top by the dressing rooms. Also over on the stage left side there's a small dressing room which is good for storing again small props, bits of costume over there as well.
Well, we've seen where the props live.
Yeah, let's go see where the costumes go.
One of the first things you'll notice about the dressing rooms is when you first come downstairs, you've got the best view of any dressing room in the world. It's fantastic. You look through this great big bay window and you see the sea, and it's just beautiful. It's fantastic. In practical terms, when the weather gets bad, the dressing rooms get very wet and very messy. If somebody puts down a prop off stage on a normal stage, you don't have to worry about it blowing away, whereas at the Minack, if somebody does that, it might blow away. So make sure you set aside a couple of hours just to sit down and enjoy the place, because it's brilliant.
38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44. This natural set is just so fantastic.
Yeah, any designer's going to have to think really hard about what they're going to put on it.
The best set is the one that we've got, the concrete one. And it was designed the way with the theatre stage has ended up. Rowena used to do about one performance a year. And so she was actually a set designer as much as a theatre builder. And if a play needed a throne, she would build a concrete throne. If the play she did next year didn't need a throne, she'd knock it down and throw it into the sea. And the bits that we've got left on the stage that we know now, which is the slab, the fish slab, the arches, and all the entrances, they're the things that we've got left that she decided she felt were versatile and useful for more than one performance.
It's such a unusual setting. We want to use that actual backdrop of the sea and the natural stone features and the headland going into the distance. So you wouldn't really want to put a lot of set on there. You want to keep it pretty minimalist.
If you try and work against the Minack set, you're always going to lose because you can't beat it.
You've got that sort of huge expansive ocean and rock face, and your colours that you choose really need to blend with what's down there rather than fight against it.
Stick with nature if possible.
Organic is the sort of term that's used and bandied around a lot. Having to use the sort of same colours that are actually down there so that you feel that it's part of the space rather than actually something that fights with the space. The weather there down at the Minack can be really problematic.
As it's so exposed, it can be very wet, it can be very hot, it can be very windy, and all three things need to be taken into account. Anything that can catch the wind will take off. Anything that can soak up a lot of water is going to get very heavy. Anything sort of too shiny can be problems because it is very, very sunny down there. You get a lot of reflection.
It can whistle up so quickly that you do have to think about waterproofing quite a lot of things.
Visibility is all. And if you want to fill the stage, wide costumes help. Tall, slim costumes look like sticks.
The large groups of costumes work very well down there, so if you've got a whole gaggle of people in a similar sort of costume, that works well. Big obviously works down there very well because of the distance. There are quite a few trip hazards on entrances, and we do have to think about the width of things when they're coming on and off. Flexibility within the actual structures of the things helps so that you can actually squash things together or whatever, so that you can actually squeeze them through narrower gaps. Really bright primary colours can be quite problematic down there, and anything in the way of anything that relies on small props.
You'd have to actually go and see the site. I don't think you could sort of just design it from a photo or an idea. You'd have to go and feel the place.
52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61.
Now you imagine that the detail that you can bring out in all this with lights, the shadows you can create, the whole ambience of the place. What you can do there with lighting, you can't really do anywhere else. You need to get a load of light on that stage, differentiate between the acting area and the audience and what's going on around you. First thing is outdoors. Obviously the problems that brings are just tremendous. The second one is you don't have the normal places to fix equipment that you're used to. You haven't got lighting bars directly over the stage. You haven't really got a lot of room in the wing space at the edges of the stage. So most of it's frontal lighting that is actually located within the theatre. So if you want anything else, you've got to take it with you and put it up and take it down. The weather plays an important part in the lighting. If the weather really is bad, it causes absolute havoc. You tend to find that you get an inkling of what the weather's going to do during the day, and that dictates whether you spend the day doing maintenance or whether you spend it on the beach. The more you can do at home, the less you've got to do there. And if the weather's bad, it's hard work. Everything is in the planning. If you can plan it right, it leaves you a lot more time free when you get down there. So I make sure that my team are fully aware before we go in there of what's required, down to the smallest detail.
When it comes to night time, you can only focus light when it's dark. That's why in a normal theatre, you would expect the lights to be turned out. But unfortunately, at the Minack, the sun doesn't go out when we want it to. So we focus at night time. It has been known to go all the way through the night till about 8 o'clock in the morning when the sun comes back up again. In matinees, we don't usually bother with the lighting due to the fact you've got a big light source, namely the sun.
Get as much light on that stage as you can in the early part of the evening, particularly if you're playing there in May, June, or perhaps early July.
Rather than trying to light people or action, light the scenery, light the rocks around them, like the arches at the back of the circular platform. They look really good with some light thrown onto them.
It's got 6 powerful lanterns hanging just underneath what they call the bridge, and just turning those on can give a little bit of feel and a bit more warmth to the whole area, the whole scene. So we tend to use the lighting that's there as what I would call the general cover or the basis of any production. But if you have specials, then you would need really to take those down with you. I would say to anybody who's going down there, utilise what's there for your main lighting. Anything you've got, any little extras you want, any backlighting, side lighting, colours, you're going to have to take the rest with you. There's no real difficulties with using any of the equipment at the Minack Theatre. It's the same equipment as you would find in most theatres. In fact, really, it's in terms of control equipment, it's very well provided for. You've got to be very, very careful with dark colours, particularly early on. Dark blues, greens, you're going to lose it down there. Make sure it's pale shade. You don't want to go for strong colours from the front, particularly when you've got people on the stage. So it's all nice, warm pinks and warm oranges. Lovely.
The best place to cue the show down at the Minack is to sit actually up on top of the lighting box. If you sit inside the lighting box, you can't see.
We don't go in the lighting box. We do the cue, then we tend to go out and watch it from by the coffee shop, which is down a bit, and then run back in when our cue's ready, or just follow the script, which one of us is usually following the script, getting ready to do the cues, while someone else is out there.
We've got a TechPro CAN system that loops around the theatre, so the stage manager can be in contact with the tech box and the dressing room.
And the prompt box is useless as a prompt box, but it's a great place for sticking a couple of power cans for lighting people.
Lighting will reveal an awful lot about that theatre. It's totally unique.
59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67.
Sound at the Minack is of particular concern. Not only do you have the sounds of the people on the stage to worry about, but you've also got a lot of other sounds to compete with. You've got the sounds of the wind, the sounds of the sea, the birds, and sometimes even the audience. So you really need to be thinking about that right from the start. The biggest piece of advice I could give for sounds would be to make sure that the balance of the sound on the stage is good. It's all very well to rehearse in a closed room, closed environment, but when you bring it outdoor, the balance changes quite dramatically. And also, with the weather changing so frequently, you really need to be on top of that all the time. So to keep rising phases, to make sure that the balance remains good throughout the performance. The sound can definitely enhance the production tenfold, but you mustn't rely on it, whatever you do. Although the equipment is good, there is a delay, and natural live sound works best.
As a sound person, you want to hear what you're trying to mix, what you're trying to develop. And if you're working busily, you can't pop outside the box and listen to what's going on around you. And when you're in the box, it's very hard to listen and hear what's going on around you, and especially when the wind gets up. So you might set your levels on a day when it's quite calm, and then the wind gets up and it's like all of a sudden you've got this howling noise coming through your microphones. And the only thing you're actually hearing in the box is the foldback. I tend to try and rely on the stage manager to let me know if my levels are too high or too low in the times when I can't get outside the box to listen to what's going on. I would say the major problems and the things you have to avoid is your positioning of microphones, your positioning of speakers. And the microphones that they use on stage are excellent. They pick up the sound from anywhere on the stage. And they're very good for this stage because this stage is long and narrow.
There is a dead spot for sounds halfway up the bank of seats on the stage left. Also, the direction of the wind can do some funny things to your sounds, and all that needs to be taken into account.
Obviously, for the Minack productions, it's recorded music and live music tend to work quite well together.
Voices are fine on the whole, although the wind can take the voices away, and so the blocking really on stage is quite important. So to get your strong voices downstage nearer the mics, and then I don't think you'll have too much of a problem. It's incredibly important here to have a vocal warm-up before you go on stage. The sound equipment is pretty good here. There are speakers right up to the top of the audience and plenty of points for mics. The only problem, I suppose, is the view from the sound box.
It's worse for the sound crew because they've got a very, very tiny window. It's almost like a peephole.
Simple is very effective here at the Minack. Also, with regards to instruments, the sort of instruments you choose are very important. Guitars work very well, drums work very well, acoustic sounds basically work very well. What doesn't work so well are electronic sounds.
I think my advice to people coming here is to take it for what it is. It's an outdoor venue. You've got to accept that it's an outdoor venue. You're going to get bad weather, you're going to get lovely weather. When you get bad weather, it can be very demoralising, incredibly demoralising. If you're on a cliff face, you know, on the middle of Cornwall, in Cornwall, you've got to expect that the weather is going to change, and it will change dramatically on you. And if you can't accept that, then you're not going to enjoy your time here.
$75, $76, $77, $78, $79, $80.
The weather at the Minack is challenging. It can be boiling hot, in which case your matinee audiences are half asleep. It can be howling, gales, raining, just misty, grizzly. It can be all sorts within 1 week.
Never trust the weatherman. If he says it's going to be sunshiny, take your raincoat just in case. The weather changes very dramatically.
We get a number of different types of audience, I guess. We have our regulars, we have a hardcore group of members. There are about 2,000 members of the Friends of the Minack. They form our regular night-on-night basis, basic audience. There are many people who come every night or every week of the season. They'll see all 17 performances. And then, of course, you've got your holiday makers who bulk the audience out during the summer, who may come here, you know, on a one-off basis just to see one show. And we get a lot of Europeans. We get a lot of people from all over the world now. The place is internationally famous.
Companies will get different audiences in the matinees and in the evening. In the peak season, they tend to be pretty similar. You'll get family audiences on a Wednesday and Friday matinee and again in the evening.
The audiences there are very, very receptive.
Make sure you're physically and vocally prepared before you get there, because it's hard work. It's much harder than a normal stage.
Get running up and down those stairs before you go down there and get yourself fit. You certainly will be by the end of the week.
Well, we've reached the end of our day at the Minack Theatre, and we've learnt an awful lot about what the real Minack has to offer to new theatre companies.
The only things that remain for us to do is to say goodbye and to wish you good luck for your production here at the Minack, and we hope you have as much fun as we've had here today.
Goodbye.
What I want is a company that has a professional outlook and does everything in a professional way, but enjoys their show, and that comes across to an audience. Any company that comes here has to come and enjoy it, and enjoy the space. But it's a great place to work in, and it's an enjoyable place to work in. I mean, I try and make it enjoyable for the company to have a good time while they're here.
But you are in an open air venue and you have to work with it, not against it.
Without a doubt, it's a magical place. It's an amazing place. I mean, you don't expect to find something like this on a cliff face in Cornwall. I mean, you come here and you come over the top and you just look down on it and you think, wow, this is amazing. You've got a fantastic seascape behind you. You've got just an outdoor venue that, you know, that just has this amazing feel to it.
I walk over the top of the theatre every day and it never ceases to have an effect on me.
It's just a joyous occasion for everybody concerned.
The magic of the Minack is clearly there for anyone who sets foot in the